Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Tech Motoring. On today's episode we're going to be taking a look at this. This is the Nurzviy Level 2 EVSE for your garage with a NEMA 1450 plug so you can plug in and charge up your vehicle at up to 40 amps of charging. Hit that subscribe button, stay tuned, let's dive in. Alright everybody, welcome back. So, Paul here with another EVSE or EV charger product review for you, though this is the Nurzviy Level 2 40 amp NEMA 1450 charger. And they reached out to me and asked me to review this product for them. And so, of course, I love the opportunity to charge new and interesting products that are on the market for your electric vehicle. So I jumped at the opportunity to do so. And here we are today. We're going to take a look at this. We're going to dive in. Take a look at the product number one, and then we're going to put it down in the garage, take a look at it, and charge with it, test it, put it through its paces, see how it does, and whether or not this is a good charger for you to put in your garage at the end of the video. So let's go ahead and dive into the box. Let's get everything spread out here so you could take a look at it, and then we'll go from there. Alright everybody, well as you can see I have all the stuff from the box now sitting on here on the table, and as you can see, if you can't already see it, this is the Nurzviy Level 2 EVSE. So this is the NEMA 1450 style, so this is the one that plugs into a NEMA 1450 plug. They do also make this charger in a hardwire setup, which is actually good up to 48 amps of charging if you wanted to hardwire it, but with the NEMA 1450 plug you are limited to that 40 amp charging speed with a 50 amp breaker. And so they also make this in a NEMA 650 plug as well, so if you have that 650 plug in your garage you can use that one instead of the NEMA 1450. So really nice that they give you the options. They also give you a couple color options as well. I went with the orange because I love how it stands out on video here. This is a really cool small compact charger. Nice screen on it. We're going to get this plugged in a little bit, take a look at what's on the screen, what it gives you on the screen there. It also comes with these RFID cards. So you get these really cool RFID cards if you want to use these to activate the charger. So you can install this charger outside. It's a NEMA 6.5 rating, so pretty good for outdoor enclosure rating, so it should be pretty sealed. And if you wanted to use this outside, and let's say it's in a public place where people might see it, well, if it's sticking out with that color, then people might see it a lot easier. But if people can see it and you don't want people charging on it, you know, just coming up to it, plugging in and stealing your energy, then you can lock this down with your RFID cards, which is a really cool thing. So if you keep an RFID card in your car, you get to your charging station. When you get home outside your garage or wherever you might have mounted it, you tap the card on the charger and sure enough, it starts charging your vehicle. But yeah, so it's really kind of a cool feature that you can use these cards to lock down the charger and, you know, stop people, unwanted people from charging on your electricity. So once again, 40 amp charging over the NEMA 1450 plug. On this side here, we do have our J1772 handle. Now, the J1772 standard is not going away anytime soon. There are a lot of cars on the road here in the States that still use the J1772 plug in their car and will need to continue to use that for the lifetime of that vehicle. Now, you could always just use adapters, but you can also use adapters going to Tesla as well. So really, you know, the argument is there regardless of which way you want to go. But the J1772 standard will be around for quite a while yet. So it gives you this nice rubber cap on the end of it, which I always like to see because you always want to protect this as much as you possibly can, especially outside. So I like seeing the rubber because the rubber will seal it a little bit better. It has this nice little tether on it, so this way you don't lose it. It just kind of dangles there. Of course, with it being rubber, it also protects about bouncing against your car if it ever does come in contact with your car. So that's a nice feature there. The latch here seems pretty good. It's pretty strong. It's plastic, but most of it is hidden underneath the J1772 handle, which I really like to see, because if this thing breaks, that's not good. It is a safety feature. When you push down on this, it's supposed to send a signal to the charger to stop charging, because most likely you're unplugging this from the car. It prevents you from having an arcing between the adapter or the charging handle and the vehicle. So that safety mechanism is nice to see. We'll be testing that during our testing period in a little bit here. Taking a look at the J1772 side, pins look like they are perfectly fine as well. We are going to be testing the fit of this when we go to plug it into a vehicle to see how it fits. Does it fit too tightly? Does it fit too loosely? Does it feel like it can, you know, wiggle around while it is secured in the car? So we'll be doing all that testing in a little bit. We do have some screws on the bottom of the J1772 handle. Now, these are not typically supposed to be, you know, user repairable or user accessible, but there are some screws on the bottom of it. Not that that's really a big deal, but just like to point out when you can see exposed screws on, you know, charging equipment, just in case anybody has that concern. Cable seems pretty tight into the handle though, so they did a pretty good job of, you know, keeping that secured in there. Now the cable here is classified as a 23.5 foot cable. Now we will measure that later to see exactly where that 23.5 foot is, and we'll test that to see the length of the cable as well to make sure that it is indeed what they claim. So the cable itself actually seems kind of nice, a little bit thick, but not too bad. I've seen thicker cables on these level 2 chargers, but we'll give it a good go in a little bit and see how well it performs. Now let's talk about the other accessories. So we do have the mount here for the actual level 2 charger. So you mount this to your wall, and then you mount the charger to this, and then that's how it gets mounted to the wall. It gets locked in with a couple of screws, I believe. So we'll kind of go over that a little bit. You do get a J1772 holster for your J1772 handle here. So when you're done, you can plug that into the holster, and this acts as a cable wrap for your cable. So this does come with a nice holster and a cable wrap, which is good to see. All the hardware is included in this bag: screws, your anchors, so anything you need to mount this to if you're mounting it into sheetrock as opposed to your beams or, you know, some sort of wood. And so that's nice, it comes with that. And of course you get the user manual. So the user manual is very nice. Very basic, but it goes over everything that you get. It does have some pictures in here to help you kind of guide through it if you need it. So nice to see that they give this stuff as well. So that is pretty much the entire tour of what you get in the box. Now I do want to go over a couple things with the EVSE real quick. On the back, they seem to have gotten this really interesting heat sink on the back of it. So that is interesting. I've never seen a product with a like passive heat sink on it before. That's really interesting. So I'm assuming that when you mount this bracket to the back of this, that will transfer a lot of heat out of this charger and away from the charger and possibly into this bracket, and this all acts as like a heat sink to keep this internals as cool as possible, which is an interesting concept. I've never really seen that before on an EVSE, where they actually have some sort of very visible you know, cooling system basically that comes external to the casing. So interesting. I'm not sure why that would be, but I am curious to see if it gets warm during charging. So I might actually have to, you know, pull this off the wall while we're charging just to see how hot that heatsink gets. On the side of the charger here, we do have some very basic information. Goes over your warnings, your cautions, your specifications. Tells you that's 40 amps, NEMA 1450. It is IP65 rated. It shows your operating temperature of -22 Fahrenheit to 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that is pretty standard for most electric vehicle equipment, whether it be adapters or these charger EVSEs. So that's perfectly fine to see there. It shows that your usage is indoor or outdoor. So once again, IP65 for those outdoor scenarios. We do get a serial number on the side, and it does have some certifications on the side. So it does show an FCC certification, which is not really anything special. That's just for wireless interference, because this is a smart charger and it does connect to Wi-Fi. It does connect to a mobile app, which we'll go over all that as well once we get down to the garage. And it also shows a CE certification. Now, I don't know if that specific CE certification is to the entire thing or if it's just for this particular unit. But yeah, so it does show a CE certification. Now, on top of the CE certification that I'm seeing visible on this machine, it also comes with a 2-year warranty through the company. So if you are looking for a charger with a warranty, this does appear to come with one, and that might help your buying decision if that's the case. Well, anyway, that's pretty much what we got here so far. So at this point, why don't we jump down into the garage? Let's get this mounted in there, take a look at it, and yeah, we'll go from there. All right, everybody, well, you joined me down here in the garage shortly after installing the Nurzviy 40 amp level 2 EVSE. And so I was very easily able to hook this up to the wall. It was just a couple screws to mount the bracket to the wall. Take the charger, slide it in, it goes into these slots, into the keyholes, it slides down, it locks in, and then there's a single Torx screw on the bottom, and that security Torx is what holds it to the bracket and also gives you a little bit of security as well in the event that somebody, you know, was to try to take this off the bracket. And as you can see, it's very stable on the bracket, not really going anywhere, and so that's a pretty good mounting solution in my opinion. We have it plugged into our NEMA 1450 outlet, which we do not have powered on yet, but we will turn it on in just a moment. And then over here we have our cable and our holster and our cable wrap and everything right here. And so I measured this cable and it came out to about 23 feet. And that's from the bottom of the EVSE here to the very end of the J1772 plug. And so 23 feet is about what you should expect for length of this cable. So a little shorter than I've seen other chargers. They usually try to push 24 feet, maybe even a little bit more than 24 feet. As far as the cable goes, it seems like it's a pretty decent cable. It isn't very easy to make the loop. I was kind of struggling a little bit to making these loops, but overall I gotta say that it wasn't the worst I've seen, but it's definitely not the best that I've seen as far as cables. The thickness is not bad, but it is a little thicker than some of the competition. Definitely a decent cable, but definitely not class leading as far as that goes. Now, let's go ahead and get this connected to our Wi-Fi, get it turned on, and then we'll kind of go from that process there. All right, so it looks like we got it turned on now. On the screen, it looks like it's pretty much booted up, ready to go. As we can see here, we got some blinking lights, and it just says, welcome, please plug in to charge. And yeah, so there we go. So I think what we're gonna do now is actually gonna get this connected to our phone to be used as a smart charger. And so what we do with that is we download the Smart Life app. And so what we do is we just add it from our phone here. It looks like it automatically discovers devices that are around you that are in pairing mode. I'm assuming that this blinking lights over here means that it's in pairing mode. So it says that is discovering devices. Let's click add. It wants us to put our Wi-Fi information in, so let's do that. All right, and as we can see here that the Nurzviy EV charger is being added. So right now it's pairing from the phone to the charger. It's gonna dump the information of how to connect to my Wi-Fi here at home, and then it's gonna connect out to the cloud, add the charger to the application, the Smart Life application, and then from there, as we can see, it says added successfully. So pretty straightforward there. That is pretty seamless. I've even had a lot worse time setting up some really good name brand chargers, you know, on the Wi-Fi. I mean, that's just one of those things that like should be that seamless, and it looks like Nurzviy actually got it right. Now, I will admit that this charging app, Smart Life, is something that is used from a lot of different charging manufacturers, not necessarily just Nurzviy. So you might see other chargers on the market that utilize the exact same app. And so looking at this now, I can see that it's pretty much the exact same interface as another charger that I recently reviewed. So interesting approach there, but hey, you know what? If the app works, if it does what it needs to do, then why change what's not broken, right? As we can see, the green lights have stopped blinking. We have a Wi-Fi light. We have a charging light, which I assume will change when we plug in the charge. All right, so let's go ahead and get this plugged into a car. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna plug it into the car and we're gonna see what happens here on the screen to see if there's anything that we need to do on here. We'll see if the RFID reader is on by default. That's usually something that you can do to turn off. And we'll kind of just go see how this reacts when we plug it in. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've plugged the car in, and now here on the screen you can see that it tells us to please swipe card or use app to start charging. And as you can see, the charging light turned blue, the RFID light has also turned blue, and at this point we can now tap a card or use the app to start charging. So let's try the card real quick and see how well that works. All right, so here we go. We have one of our cards here. All right, it beeped. This clicked. I heard the car accept that. The car is now going, and here on the screen we have information of what's going on right now and what's going into the car. So let's take a look at this. So what we see here is really kind of neat. We have our total voltage, which it shows as 247 volts, actually, pretty interesting. We have our total kilowatt hours that has been delivered to the vehicle. We have a current amperage and our current time of how long and how much power that is, so 9.82 kilowatts currently. And 40 amp max is what it's set at. So we can see that also on the application as well. Now I can go into the application here and I can say the charging current if I want to lower this to, let's say 38 amps, let's just say, or let's just say 32 amps. Let's confirm that there. And it just already updated. So it's already updated on the charger, and now it's going to start tapering down that amperage to meet what I've asked it to do. So now it's only going to charge the car at 32 amps. So really, really impressive. I mean, we're talking in a matter of a couple of seconds. What I do on the app is actually what it's doing on the charger itself. So on the app itself, it does show our same statistics that we have here, but I do really like the fact that you have it right here on the charger as well. Now we know we can swipe in the app to discontinue charging, or can we? There we go. So once again, the RFID card will start charging the car, or it will stop charging the car as well. That's pretty cool to see. All right, let's go ahead and look at the car side of things. All right, everybody. Well, you join me now on the next part of our test, which is the charging and temperature test. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking our Nurzviy J1772 handle here. We're going to be maxing out the charger at 40 amps, which is what it's capable of on the NEMA 1450 outlet. We're going to be plugging it into this 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E for a total of 3 hours or thereabout. And we're going to see what the temperatures are of this J1772 handle and the cable throughout as we go through those 3 hours. And we'll see what it's like after that 3 hours. So we're going to give this a good charge. We're going to see how everything goes. And then we'll kind of talk about it after we've used it for a couple of weeks possibly. And we'll kind of just see what we think about the charger. All right, so let's go ahead and get this plugged in. And as we know at this point that it's not going to start charging right away. Now the insertion of this feels actually pretty good. I'm going to do that one more time just to kind of show you. So once again, taking the J1772, plugging it in, makes a nice insertion sound. The latch is latched properly in there. As you can see, it's not really wiggling around all that much. So the tolerances seem pretty good. So I'm really happy with the way that that went in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start charging from the actual app itself. And as you can see, within like 1 second of me swiping, it went ahead and started charging. So we are now at the charging part of our test. And let's just get some baseline temperatures to kind of give you all what the temperature is right now. So this is coming out on the handle at about 69 degrees. Cable's a little bit cooler right now, about 65 degrees. So the ambient temperature outside is probably about 65, 66 degrees right now. This might be a little warmer from me holding it. And so that's what our baseline temperature is going to be. So we're going to come back to this in about 3 hours and see what we're looking at as far as temperature. All right, as you can see here, we are coming up to our 3 hour mark, just a few minutes away. We are still charging at the same rate that we were when we started this, just about 40 amps, so looking really good. One of the weird glitches I just noticed was this temperature up here. As you can see, it's now not showing a temperature, it's actually just showing random characters. And I believe the 1 is correct for 100, but then it's showing this R and an apostrophe after it, which I believe are supposed to be numbers, and in this case are currently letters and a punctuation mark. Before I was getting like a 1Q something. So it looks like that is a little bit of a software glitch with this, where once it gets above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it tends to glitch out on that number there, which is really weird. Another feature I forgot to mention on this charger is this cut off button right here. So in the event that you need to, rapidly shut this off for any reason, you can actually hit that button and it will cut off the EVSE completely. So this way you don't have any, having to unplug it from a socket like there, or maybe if your electrical panel's kind of too far from here, you have another way of being able to turn off the charger, which is really nice. So while we're here sitting at just about the 3-hour mark, let's go ahead and take some temperatures with the gun. So we're going to take a shot right here on the NEMA plug. As you can see, we're only about 84 degrees, which is nice. Let's come down to the cable here, about 89 degrees, 87 degrees. Let's go a little lower. Yep, 85 degrees or so. Let's go right here next, close to the unit itself. And that's just about 90 degrees there, which is perfectly fine. Just a quick touch test here. And yeah, really just kind of warm, not really, hot or anything like that, which is good to see. Take a shot of this cable here. We are just over 90 degrees, about 93 degrees there. Let's just go a little bit further down the cable. And as you can see, it's starting to get cooler as we go. About 81, 82, 83, 84. So yep, so that looks pretty good. And we'll just take one down here as well. About 81 degrees there too. So it looks really good. Now I know I mentioned before about the heat sink that was on the back of this, and I could put my hand on it, and even though it is warm, it's by no means hot. Like, it doesn't burn if I were to put my hand on that heatsink back there. So really cool idea. I think it's really neat how it tries to cool the internal components of the charger here by putting an external heatsink on it, allowing the heat to get away from the EVSE as much as possible. I've also noticed that there's a little bit of an air gap between the bracket and the wall, which is nice because it allows airflow to get behind there and pull air over the heatsink to remove that extra heat as well. So kind of a neat idea. I think that's really kind of different and interesting. Probably not necessary, but it's nice to have just in case. Once again, if it's outside a really hot environment, it could get, very toasty and maybe even, cause premature failures of the units if they get too hot. But that, with the heatsink, allows it to kind of take its, heat away and exhaust it out the back without having the need for a fan or anything like that. So it keeps its IP65 rating because of that. So let's head on over to the car. If we follow the cable, we'll go ahead and see this side of the charging handle here. And let's go ahead and just take some temperatures here. So let's go close to the vehicle. Yep, only about 80 degrees there. We'll go over there, about 78. Try on that side, about 84. Let's just go down the handle a little bit. Yep, and now it's getting really cool as we go down the handle. Let's try right there on the cable. Yep, only about 80 degrees. Cool. So far, so good. You can hear the fans, on the car. They've been kicking on and off to keep the internal components of the vehicle cool as it charges at around 9.5 kilowatts. All right, everybody. Well, you join me back now 3 hours after charging the Ford Mustang Mach-E here. As we see the temperatures on the cable, on the EVSE unit, everything going up to it seems to be pretty good and well within spec after 3 hours. The handle is still very cool with just a basic touch test. We don't have any hot spots anywhere on it or on this cable for that matter. So really, really nice. Let's go ahead and do a quick unplug of this and see how it feels. We're going to push down on the button as well to see if it cuts off the charging. So we're pushing down now. All right, it kicked off the charging. I heard it there, heard the car disconnect. Pull this out. Feels really good coming out. Let's go ahead and close that door. What we're gonna do now is put it on a bit of a test for using this charger on like a daily basis to charge both of my vehicles for about 2 weeks. See how it works, see if I like it, and we'll give you my final verdict after that time. And then we'll talk about if the Nurzviy Level 2 40 amp EVSE is the right one for your garage, where you can plug it into your NEMA 1450 plug, and just start charging your car. So very interesting situation here. I charged last night overnight with this charger on my Tesla Model 3 here, and then today I went to go plug my car back in after I got home from work. It says please plug in to charge. I went ahead and got this plugged into the vehicle like so, took my RFID card, tapped it to the charger, and I am now getting basically what last night's charge was. So it shows that it's been charging for 761 minutes here, you know, showing voltage and amperage and power, but the Tesla is not receiving any of it. And so I'm not quite sure what is going on here, so I'm going to go ahead and reboot and see if that fixes the issue. Alright, so I've rebooted the breaker over there, got it plugged back into the car. Let's go ahead and tap. Okay, now it sounds like it is charging, so we could see everything is starting to ramp up, and now the car is charging. So very weird. We had to reboot the charger in order for this charging session to activate. All right, everybody. Well, you joined me back now about 2 weeks after we've been using the Nurzviy 40 amp NEMA 1450 level 2 EVSE here in my garage on my two vehicles. Now, just to kind of give you an idea, the two vehicles that I was using this charger on consistently was a 2021 Ford Mustang Mach-E with the J1772 port and my 2022 Tesla Model 3 Performance, obviously with the Tesla or NACS port. So we have been using this charger as our primary charger for the last 2 weeks, using it on both vehicles, like I was saying, and so far everything has been working out pretty well with the charger, except for two different things that we kind of came across as issues. So one of the first things that we came across as an issue with this charger was, and I mentioned this previously in this video, was that temperature thing up at the top. So for some reason, when it would get above the 100-degree mark, when it was adding that third digit in there, it would throw in some random characters into the temperature, so it wasn't really usable. So it was showing like, you know, 1 and then 2 random characters, degrees Fahrenheit. And so I brought this up to Nurzviy, the company that makes this charger, and they were easily able to send an over-the-air update out to this charger through the Smart Life app that I showed you setting up before. And they were able to fix that issue. So now, instead of us being on the 1.0.9 version software of the charger, we are now on the 1.1.0 version of the software on this charger. So Nurzviy also claims that they are supporting these chargers normally with over-the-air updates for everybody. So it's not just something they did for me, but in the event that there are some issues down the road, they can software fix these chargers. So pretty interesting way of doing things, but yeah, definitely that is the future, and I'm glad to see that they're kind of catching on with that. Now, the screen, all these lights here, this is sort of its idle mode, if you will. And I'm not a big fan of chargers where they stay with the screen lit up completely while it's idle. Like if it's been sitting like this for a day or so, you should probably be able to just turn the screen off. Maybe you can leave the lights on, or at least the power light on, but just for the sake of saving some electricity. And I know it's not a lot of electricity that gets used, but it would still be better to see that this stuff kind of turns off to save some power while you're not using it, while it's idle, while it's just sitting in your garage. I would like to see kind of some sort of power saving mode in this, but once again, that is a very small thing to be worried about. One weird issue I had with specifically my Tesla vehicle is that for some reason, when I plugged the car in, the car would start charging. I would unplug the car, put everything back. That night, I would come home from work and I would go to plug the car back in. I would tap the card, and when I tapped the card, it basically brought up all the statistics from my previous charge without actually starting a new charge. And so I thought this was kind of weird, and I've reached out to Nurzviy about this, and so they're in the process of looking into getting a fix done for this. And I don't know if it's caused because there is an adapter in line, which maybe is the reason that that happens, but I've tried it with this adapter here, and I've also tried it with the official Tesla adapter, the one that I got with my car, and they both give the same issue where it just seems to not want to charge. I have to actually
physically unplug power from the charger, plug it back in to reset it, and then I could start a new charge from that point. Which is not a big deal, but if you're gonna be primarily using this for Tesla vehicles, then I think that might be a little weird. Now maybe it's something to do with just my specific car, but I've never had any charging issues with my car on any other charger that I've ever come across. So really interesting issue I've had with that. So hopefully they come across a fix for this in the future. As we can see, the cable that we were talking about before, the cable actually works pretty well. It's not a super thick cable by any means. It's actually a pretty well designed cable, and it is able to be formed back into circles relatively easily. I haven't had many issues with trying to just form the cable back up on the wall. It's definitely not the best cable I've seen on the market, but it is definitely one of the nicer ones, and it definitely is better than some of the ones I've previously tested where it's almost impossible to make loops like this in the cable. It's crazy how sometimes the cables become so unwieldy. Other than that, the cable is pretty good. The length of the cable was pretty good. As you saw before, the length of the cable is pretty decent. And yeah, overall, I gotta say it's pretty good. The handle works pretty good. The tolerances on the plug seem to be perfectly fine, plugging into the J1772 port of my Mach-E, and also plugging into any adapters like so. As you can see, fits in there nice and tight, doesn't really move all that much, comes off perfectly fine. So that seems to be pretty good. This locking mechanism seems to work perfectly fine. It also has a hole in it for, you know, like locking it. I guess maybe if you park outside, you don't want somebody pulling this off your car, you could potentially put a lock through this. Good idea with the dust cap. Once again, little rubber tether there to hold it to this, so you can use that if you don't feel like, you know, plugging it into your holster. The only issue I have with this setup with this particular holster, and I'm not a huge fan of these holsters, is because of how it sticks straight out from the wall. And what that gives you is it gives you this probably 1.5 feet of distance from the wall where this cable comes out to. And sometimes if you have like a skinny path between your car and your garage, like I do in this case, sometimes walking by this every day gets a little bit annoying. You try to avoid this, you try to not bump into it. And I have it mounted up relatively high, and I still have to kind of duck around it in the mornings after I unplug my car. So I really like to see holsters where they come down on a bit of an angle. So this is more like this. And then as you can see, the cable then doesn't come out away from the wall as much. And so I really like to see charging holsters more like that, where the cable can stay closer to the wall than this. But this is a relatively, you know, inexpensive ad that they put into the box. This is a very commonly used holster on the market. I mean, this is pretty much what a lot of them are using. It's just that little design tweak that they could do to make the experience just that much better. So that is the review of the Nurzviy 40 amp NEMA 1450 level 2 EVSE. If you're interested in this product, link is down in the description below the video. You can take a look at that, click on the link. It'll take you right to the site to take a look to see if this is the right charger for you. The size of this charger is pretty cool. I think the design is kind of neat as well. The screen is very helpful. I do like seeing screens on some EVSEs. I think that's a really cool ad. One of the things I always say is my Mach-E, for instance, doesn't have a charge setting in the vehicle, but it also doesn't have a way for you to see how fast you're charging in the vehicle. And so this kind of gives you a really quick reference guide to see where you're charging at, how fast, your temperature of your charger. A lot of very nice information to have on the screen so you can reference it at any time. And of course, using the Smart Life app on your phone is also a nice little addition, as well as this is a smart charger. So the question is now, is the Nurzviy for you? Well, that's for you to decide. Once again, link is down in the description below. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching today's episode, and I hope this video helped you out. If it did, give it the thumbs up, like button below. Of course, if you're interested in more EVSE reviews, make sure you hit the subscribe button down there as well. I'd like to thank Nurzviy for reaching out to me to do this product review for their charger. I'm really impressed. They have some pretty cool design features that you don't normally see on a lot of chargers, which I think helps make it stand out just a little bit more. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Remember, welcome to the future, and welcome to tech motoring. We'll see you soon.